Now, this ruling came down on Friday, so it's relatively new, but do we know anything about the enforcement mechanisms here? Because I was talking to our healthcare reporter about what if there's a natural disaster and a storage facility loses power? So in the case that was brought to the Alabama Supreme Court, it's these couples whose embryos were destroyed through human error. But what happens if a hurricane, a flood, a tornado comes through and there is damage to embryos? Is the storage facility liable? Is the couple liable? Do we even know the answers to these questions?
No, it's a great question. Look, we have a concept built into American law of what's called force majeure, or an act of God, that some parties are not responsible for. But I think your question raises a great point, which is, where is the line on negligence, right? Negligence is the theory in American law of what is a reasonable person or a reasonable business that's, for example, doing storage. What are they expected to do? And when did they fall below the standard of care that they're expected to meet and breach their obligations so that they're financially responsible for damages that they caused? So I think that is a real question, right? No one's going to be blamed if it's a freak occurrence where we can call it an act of God, but there are going to be plenty of things, plenty of cases where someone behaved negligently. I mean, and not to take this too far on an extreme, but I have the one question this raises for me relates to miscarriage, right? I mean, the question that we've had a whole conversation about the way that health systems, hospitals have changed the way they deliver miscarriage care because of the fear that a miscarriage may resemble or be close to an abortion. But I think this raises the question of whether women who are pregnant can engage in activity that endangers the pregnancy and is a basis for charges of manslaughter. That is a perfectly logical extension of this ruling and should give pause to anybody who is concerned about reproductive rights.
You mentioned contraception earlier, and I think I'm just going to mirror the question back to you. This ruling raises concerns over miscarriage, and to my mind, knowing how contraception works, does this threaten contraception in Alabama or in the United States more broadly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this decision today about embryo, the status of an embryo doesn't directly touch upon it, but it's very clear. We're already seeing evidence in not only in Alabama but in other abortion restrictive states that healthcare providers, pharmacies are nervous, for example, about prescription drugs that can be given for contraception, for like and both before and after, about their implications, because effectively they may be denying a life from coming into existence, or in some cases with some of the medications that are taken, can be taken in the days after to avoid a pregnancy, would effectively be preventing it from occurring. And so this further bolsters the kind of legal foundation that needs to be made to make a move in that direction. And a lot of people, when Roe v. Wade was repealed, a lot of people insisted that we weren't going to see this taken. We had people who defended the decision and said, we don't have to worry about fertility rights, we don't have to worry about contraception. But I think we can see from today that we do have to worry about fertility rights, and we already are having to worry about contraception. And it's certainly not hard to imagine a decision after this one that takes the same kind of really extreme position on contraceptive medications and contraception.
Well, after all, how many years did we hear that Roe was settled law? And lo and behold, it was not. So would you say that those who are raising alarm bells that, I hear a certain faction of society saying this is about controlling women and limiting women's choices, and then another faction of society says that's overreacting, that's, fear and just completely irrational. What do you say to those warring factions?
A lot of people complained that Roe v. Wade offended the sensibilities of people who believed in the sanctity of life, and that it was a trampling on their rights, and the worry on the other side of people who defended reproductive health access and the right to all of the rights around that, including abortion, worried that we would be in a world of chaos if you took them away. And I think we're seeing it play out. We're seeing that is playing out right now. We are literally, this couldn't be more chaotic for anyone who is considering or in the process of IVF or any other reproductive technology for trying to have a child. So we've created a world of chaos with this decision, supposedly throwing it back to the states. So it's not going to get easier from here. And the other thing that's really noteworthy is that the Supreme Court, when they issued the repeal in the Dobbs case, they made a statement that, we're leaving it to the states and everything's going to be, they sort of suggested everything's going to be calm at the national level, and this will just be dealt with from state to state. So if you don't like the way the law is running in Alabama, go travel north, go to Illinois. And so what we're seeing is that this battle is just continuing to rage, and people are trying to push it back up to a national level. And frankly, it's going to be on the table in the campaign for the next president and the next Congress. And this issue is not settling down and becoming a sort of state by state issue. This is still just a raging debate that's going to keep expanding.
Well, there